We are on to 24.2, more statistics, this time inference from representative samples. Remember, inference means you can look at certain information and make a conclusion. In this case, they did a representative sample of 60 students, so they've already told you it's representative, at a middle school. So they've already said we've got 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, boys and girls, kids that like soccer, kids that like to read, kids that are in the art class, in leadership, in yearbook, hang around in the upper quad at milk break, hang around in the lower quad at milk break, just a good representative group. They've asked the students to identify their favorite subject, and the results of the survey are shown in the table at right. And they're making 3 statements, and on each statement, you are supposed to decide whether that statement is true or false. First statement, PE is the favorite subject of more students than any other subject. You can say false. You know that that's not true. You know that math is the favorite. Now, you know math is the favorite just because math is everybody's favorite. You can do that without sampling. But you can't rely on that for this problem. What you can rely on is this data. There are 16 students who like math, and there are only 14 students who like PE. So PE has 14 students, while math has 16 students. So you know that's false. Next statement. Twice as many students pick math as pick history. That is a true statement. We know that there are 16 students who pick math. So the math has 16 students. If you divide that by 2, you get 8, which is the number of students who like history. They tell us that right here in the table. Another way to say it, you could also write it as there are 8 students who like history and another 8 students who like history to get up to the 16 that like math. This is history, this is history, this is math. Finally, in a group of 300 students at the school, it's expected that 48 would pick math as their favorite. Well, it's expected that almost 300 would pick math, but let's just go back to the table. So in a group of 300, 48 would pick math. Well, here's what we know. We know 16 out of the 60 picked math. Is that going to be 48 out of 300? So we can look for this answer a couple of different ways. And there was one particular way that I recommended that you do it, and that is that you set up a proportion just like this, and then let me move that proportion over so I have a place to write my answer, which, by the way, the answer to this is false. And now we're going to do the proof that it's false. And my proof is to cross multiply. So multiply 16 times 300. And when you multiply 16 times 300, you get 4,800. And then finish the cross multiplication. 60 times 48 gives you 2,880. And since those are not the same, this is not equal. So that was my way of solving it. I'm going to make that not equal a little easier to read. There were a couple of interesting ways that I saw students do this, and here was one of the ways that I found most interesting. They took 16 over 60, and they said, well, I'm trying to get something over 300. And I can see that to get to that, I have to multiply by 5. To keep this even, I'd have to multiply the top by 5 also, because I need a big 1. And when I multiply 16 by 5, I get 80, not 48. So that's another way of proving that it's false. And you can actually do that. This took me a calculator to do. I happen to know the answer. You can do this without. Remember, you don't have to know exactly what the number is. In this case, it would be 80. You just have to know that that statement is false. So again, if you had false, true, false on the test, but you didn't show your work, you didn't receive full credit. Change that up this time. Show all the math that justifies the answer you pick, and you'll score higher on this next test. It's always frustrating, isn't it, to know it but not show it correctly. And in this case, you have to be able to show how you know it. Okay, so take that information and check it against your test. Make whatever notes you need to make, and if you still have questions, bring them to class.